happens as normal. Myself and Kate will give a quick 10-minute update because we always eat into that hour 15 minutes. So we'll give a quick 10-minute update on things. And then today we have Dr. Kat O'Neill, who's at the top of my screen. I don't know if you can all see her as well. Kat's going to deliver a session on young people's mental health. She's one of our senior lecturers in psychology, and she's also a clinical psychologist. So that'll be hopefully really interesting and useful session for you all. And then, as normal, the last 15 minutes we'll have open forum, we'll have a nice chat and a catch up. If you need to shoot off, please feel free to do that because I know you're all extremely busy. But if you are free for a quick 15 minutes, it'd be nice to chat and see how you're doing and see if there's anything that we can do to help you. So I'm going to kick off. I'm not going to kick off. I'm going to let Kate kick off today. Actually, I'm going to hand over to Kate to start.
I never kick off first.
I know, I'll stop talking.
Right, okay. I don't know whether any of you have had any emails through from UCAS and UK Uni. In the last week, we've had confirmation from them that they are hoping that their face-to-face exhibitions are going to be able to go ahead next year. So our UK Uni are looking at delivering their exhibitions April-May time, and UCAS are looking at delivering their exhibitions from May through to July. With UCAS, they are not looking at doing campus events this year. They're only going to be looking at doing exhibition centres. So I'm going to try and share this from UCAS. Can you see that, Jade, or not?
It's been 8 months. I should know to unmute myself. I could only see your emails there, Kate.
Can you see them?
Yeah, there you go. That's better.
Right, and them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so these are the provisional dates that we've got through from UCAS. As I say, they are all the exhibition large events. There isn't any on kind of campus events happening this year from what we can see. Obviously, the closest one to us is going to be the Tyneside one, or I know some of you might go to Sheffield. Leeds, by the looks of it, isn't going to be happening, but hopefully the Tyneside event is looking to go ahead.
We definitely won't
in July
be
time.
The Teesside one as well.
Definitely won't be posting the Teesside one this year. I know quite a few of you obviously come to the campus event at Teesside. That's not going to be going ahead this year, so Tyneside is going to be the one closest to us. UCAS have said that at the moment, as things stand, we're not going to be able to hand out prospectuses, so universities will not be able to give students a prospectus. We're not entirely happy with that, because then we're saying, well, what can we give to students? They talk to so many people at these exhibitions. It's really difficult for them to kind of take in the information. So we're working with UCAS at looking at maybe changing that. And obviously things are changing all the time as well. So as we hear kind of updates from UCAS, I'll let you guys know and update you in this event. We've also sent out, Jade and I have also recently sent out an email about some prospectus drop-offs. Obviously, you guys aren't having your HE fairs and careers fairs this year, but your students still need that information. So we're working with a logistics provider to get copies of prospectuses out to you. If you haven't, you will be getting an email in the next couple of days about that, just saying when to expect them. And we're looking at delivering a box of each subject area, as well as for those kind of our local colleges will also be getting a banner as well. So expect an email from either Jade or I in the next couple of days, just advising about prospectus drop-offs. And I think that's all from me, Jade.
Lovely. I have unmuted this time, so I've learned from my mistakes. A couple of other more generic things just to make you aware of that we have going on within the recruitment team and the university. So our winter university portfolio of short courses is now live, so you're now able to apply for those. That's a range of 10 credit short courses that we run in a variety of different areas. Obviously, a lot of students, when they receive their conditional offers from us, might find that their involvement in one of these courses and successful completion of one of these courses is part of their condition. So it is really useful for students to be aware of them. And for those students who it isn't part of their condition, if they want to get a little taste of what studying at that level 4 HE level is like, definitely worth having a look. They are £50, but for anybody who has to complete one as part of their condition if they successfully progress onto the first year of the degree. They get that money refunded, so they don't need to worry about it. They're also, though, I would point out, really useful for anybody looking to do any CPD, wanting to get some taste, a little bit of a taster in a different subject area. There are a few different academic areas, so we do academic skills for higher education, and then there's a variety of subject-specific taster 10-credit short courses as well, so definitely worth a look at. And like everything that we discuss, and you will know for those that have attended before, we will send out the minutes and any links and things that we've mentioned today to make it easy for you. We also have Maths for Uni, which I mentioned this in a meeting a couple of months ago, but this is an opportunity for students who have a conditional offer on any of our engineering courses, some of the computing. I've had to open it up on my website because I can't remember them all. Maths courses. We have 100 places for students who would be interested in taking part in this course. So again, it's a taster course. It's to get them get their maths skills up to date and ready for joining us at the university. There is also a really important part, which I think might be worth noting to a lot of students, is that if you are worried that you aren't going to succeed in your maths qualification, but you take part in this Maths for Uni module and complete it to the highest, the standard needed, it can be accepted in place of the level 3 maths. So if we have any students, engineering, maths, computing, who are worried that they're not going to get the maths grade that they need at level 3, it's definitely worth highlighting this to them. There are limited places. It is all online, so they're not expected to come onto campus at all. But I thought that might be a nice trigger. There's probably some students who are worried about their level 3 maths. So for those, it's definitely worth pointing out to them, making them aware that they need to have a look at that, because it might actually help them to get that level 3 maths at the grade that they need to. So we'll send that out as well. On Monday, we emailed all of you. I'm sorry if you're absolutely sick of hearing from us, but the Maths Winter course be useful for nursing. That's not on the list, so nursing students won't be eligible to study the Maths for Uni course, I'm afraid. But there are maths courses within the Winter University, which is a great question. I don't know off the top of my head, Kate, do you, if somebody could study a maths
No, I'm just going to have a look now and see if I can find that information.
Leave that with us. As usual, if we can't find out, we'll certainly get back to you when we send out the minutes, but that's a good question, actually. On Monday, yeah, apologies if you have had quite a few emails from us recently. I know it's probably the last thing you need. But we sent out on Monday our update, and that included a number of digital assets. So we've had our marketing team develop some nice little digital sort of PDFs for you to use across your buildings and campuses. If you have any TV screens on show, if you have a particular student portal that you use, there's some nice messages there that we'd really appreciate if you could share across those platforms. If there's any particular format that you need those in that's different to what we provided you with, please, as usual, just get in touch with either Kate or I, whoever your contact is, and we can arrange that. We have also, within that email, so I'm just covering these because I'm aware we did cover a lot within the updated email on Monday. We are also offering a support series of webinars from now up until the Christmas break. So there will be 2 presentations a week for the next 4 weeks, starting this week, with a different topic each week. They are offered on a Tuesday lunchtime and a Thursday evening. And that ranges from applying through UCAS, personal statements for those that haven't done it yet. If they need a little push, we actually have personal statement sessions next week if we have any flaggers. We have Introduction to Teesside and Student Finance running from now up until Christmas. So if any students need that, you can direct them along to those. As usual, we still do our bespoke activity, but they are running, just so you know, every week from now until Christmas. And then on a Friday, we're hosting a student live presentation. So each Friday, we'll have a different student talking about their experience as well. So if any students are nervous about coming to university in general, Teesside specifically, that should be really useful for them as well. And like I've mentioned, we'll include all of that when we send it out. The only other thing that I've got to mention quickly before I hand over to Kat is that we have received some guidance from the School of Health on the undergraduate interview process the other day. So we will certainly be sharing that with you as well for any students who are looking to apply to a health course. have applied to a health course and have an interview pending, we will share that out with you so that the students are as up to date as possible with the interview process. At Teesside specifically, I need to stress it wouldn't be the same at every university, obviously, but should give them a little bit of a heads up when it comes to coming to Teesside. That is me done and on time, so I am going to hand over to Kat now. So as I mentioned, so we've got Dr. Kat O'Neill with us today. She's a clinical psychologist and senior lecturer in our psychology department, and is going to deliver a session on young people's mental health. Please do, if you have any questions or anything, pop them in the chat box and we can ask Kat at the end. But I'll hand over to you, Kat, if that's okay. Oh, unmute, Kat.
You know, I do this every day and you'd think I'd remember about not muting myself, but so can I just check that you guys can see my PowerPoint?
We can, yep.
Fabulous. I just need to check something actually, just to check that I've put the sound on. Let me just check. Yep. Just I've got a little video to play. So thank you everybody. I know it's the end of the day and I'm sure you're all very tired, so thank you for coming along. I understand, is everybody a careers advisor? Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
All right, my mum's actually a careers advisor in Middlesbrough, so yeah, maybe you'll know her, I don't know. But I know how hard you guys are working at the moment, and you know, it's a very strange time for everybody that's working in educational settings, I think. And actually, young people's mental health is something that anyone who's in contact with young people at the moment may be experiencing. You know, it may be that young people talk to anyone from careers advisors to, you know, any teachers, or as well as your sort of more traditional mental health staff. So I think it is a good session for you to be involved in. So we're going to talk, is it about half an hour the talk today? Yeah, about young people's mental health. And I've tried to put some kind of thought, like topics in there that you can have a little think about, but also try to make it quite practical so that as you know, your role largely will be signposting, but it may be that a young person discloses something to you in the course of a careers session. So I think obviously you'll have your own procedures and how to manage that, but I think it'd be nice for you guys to come away with something that you can use in your day job, basically. So that's how I've kind of pitched it. So one of the first things I wanted to do was just have a quick look at this Mentimeter. So can you guys, I'm just thinking, can you click on that? I don't know if you'll be able to.
We won't be able to, no.
All right, let's have a look then. So
if you click on it and share your screen, Kat, that might work.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I will post it in the chat here, the link, and then you just click it in, and it'll just asking you what sort of mental health difficulties you see in your role. So if you click through to that, it'll take it through to the Mentimeter site, and I will share the results. Through the wonders of modern technology. Let's have a look. So if you guys, there you go. Yep. So it looks like we've got anxiety, stress, eating disorders, depression, disengagement. Yes, definitely seeing that in the 16-17 population at the moment. Eating disorders, exam stress, low mood, depression. Yeah, feeling upset, worrying. So there's lots of anxiety, lots of worry, moods fluctuating, perhaps something around eating disorders as well. So thank you for that. That's I just look like, since I've been we're all online now, I love all the sort of fancy jiggery pokery that we get to have a go of. So that's why I wanted to have a go of it. If I can get off this. Okay, so can you see the screen now still? Can you see a screen that says Coop? All right, great. So it was interesting to see that those things that you're seeing in young people, definitely anxiety, low mood, eating disorders, are things that are coming up. And I recently attended a training from a national suicide prevention organisation, like one of the governing bodies. And I don't know if you guys have heard of Couth.com. You might have encountered it in your role in colleges. If you're from this area, we actually subscribe to Couth.com, and it's a free online counselling service. that young people can access. It's actually a national organisation, so they work, I think, in 172 trusts across the UK, but you'd have to check with your individual trust if you're from outside the area. If you're from Tees, Esk and Weir, then we do subscribe to it, so it's a useful source of support for young people in signposting. But what they found was that in terms of the referrals and the things that young people were coming with, was that self-harm and suicidal thoughts were up by 38%. Loneliness was up by 55%, just as you said. Eating disorders have increased quite significantly, along with body image concerns, and sleep is something else that's really becoming a problem for young people at the moment. Similarly, we heard Papyrus, which is another great organisation. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but basically they work specifically with young people under the age of 35 around suicide prevention. And some of the reasons why there was this increase, this is what Papyrus said in terms of the helpline calls coming through, were things like family issues. So obviously we know that that stage of development, it's very important to kind of be able to express themselves, meet with their friends, and kind of separate from the family unit. That's the task of adolescence, essentially, is to separate and launch yourself into adulthood. And not being able to do that has caused a lot of stress for young people. Obviously, there's a lot of isolation as well. So if you're stuck at home, you're not able to see your friends as much. Then there's some of the things that might be contributing to young people's increased risk of suicide. It may be that they're in an abusive home environment with parents with substance misuse problems or other stressors that are happening for the parents. So that can also increase risk. There might be a lack of support. So where traditionally people have had face-to-face therapy, that's not always been the case for young people. A lot of services have certainly closed the doors in terms of face-to-face consultations. And for a while, there wasn't as much support around as usual. Certainly some of the third sector organisations weren't available either. So actually, you know, young people at a time of increased stress and vulnerability have lost some of those key sources of support. As well as close supportive relationships like their peers. If you aren't able to access services because everything's gone digital, that's going to mean that you're excluded unless able to access support. So that's also an area where we think risk might have increased. And it was really interesting what they were saying was actually they'd seen a large increase in their email and text services. Whereas voice and face-to-face has declined, and that was mainly because young people were stuck at home, particularly during the first lockdown, and unable to make a private phone call to, for example, the Samaritans or to an online therapy service. So they were using text and email because then they had more privacy about things. So I think that was just interesting to think about how the pandemic is actually impacting on our young people. And there's lots of complex factors aside from perhaps the way that young people have been spoken about in the media. Obviously, you know, you hear a lot of comments around the snowflake generation, and there isn't always an acknowledgement of what young people have actually sacrificed in terms of their exams, in terms of their future opportunities, in terms of going to university. So I think all of those things can contribute to poorer mental health for young people. And so I just wanted to expand. My area of specialism is looking at suicide and self-harm. And we know that it's, particularly in this area, it is an issue for young people. And I'm sure you probably encountered that at some points in your roles. And I guess one of the things I wanted to highlight, this is a very brief overview, was just thinking about why people self-harm. And I think sometimes the dominant ideas you get are that it's about a way of communicating distress, or that it's a way of, I mean, you often hear attention seeking or trying to draw attention to a particular issue that they've got. But actually in a meta-analysis, which is like a big review of all the research out there on a topic, Taylor found that actually one of the main reasons for self-harming was to manage emotions. So just as, you know, we might like to have a nice glass of wine or have a box of chocolates or have, you know, a takeaway or do something nice for ourselves to, you know, at the end of a stressful week, sometimes young people who self-harm have found that this is a way of either distracting from the emotion or containing the overwhelming emotion that they're experiencing. So actually, in the main, that's why they're doing it, rather than as a way of kind of gaining attention or expressing distress to another person. The communicative aspect is less than you might think. So I wanted to share this with you. Hopefully I should be able to. Oh, great. Let's see if it works here. Tell me if you can hear this when it comes on.
Yeah, that's fine.
And a lot of time with young people, we notice changes in their behaviour, notice signs and symptoms. Usually when I've spoken to people who said, I've noticed, do you want to tell me about that? And generally they do. And actually what I find with young people is they actually want to. It's this communication that actually everything that's going on inside me is really ugly or is really scary, but I'm going to show you in this sort of wound or this cut, and if you react badly to what you see on the outside, then I'm not going to show you what's on the inside, because that's the really scary thing. If you see this and you look past that and you're willing to talk about this, then I can trust you to show you everything else.
The first time I spoke to a student about self-harm, I felt the weight of responsibility to get it right and have all the answers. I realised that I needed to enlist the support of other people, and I needed some support not just in dealing with her, but also dealing with my reaction to self-harm and how actually I wanted to put everything right for her and make everything okay. And I realised that that wasn't actually what she needed at that point. She just needed to be listened to.
To have that trust and confidential relationship when you are vulnerable, when you don't always know what's happening, is absolutely crucial.
Having someone outside of the family that they can talk to about their self-harm can be vitally important. A lot of young people who self-harm are experiencing problems at home, and therefore home doesn't feel like a safe place. And so I think for them to have someone who is safe, who doesn't judge, who doesn't freak out, and have a safe place to talk about it whilst not feeling like that person's then watching everything that's going on, that could be really, really important to young people.
There are hard days and there are some times that you don't know what to do, but then there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, and with the help and support you can get there. Even if it's a friend, another adult, a professional, just find someone that you trust and talk to them.
So I just wanted to share that video because I think it really sums up nicely some of the ways that you can start to think about working with this problem. Even if it's not that you would be working with the mental health, it could be that somebody discloses that to you, and it's at that point you need to know beforehand what you're supposed to do, rather than suddenly being having that disclosure upon you and then having to scrabble around and try and work out what's the right thing to do. And I think, essentially the right thing to do is not to freak out, not to try and control everything, but just listen to that person and then enlist the help and support of others to be able to manage that. So I just wondered, is that something that you've ever encountered in your role, even as careers advisors, and how is that sort of thing managed within your team?
Hello there, I'm from Hartlepool, by the way. We the way we are at the college, we have a wall and they across all departments in college.
Laura, can everybody else struggling with a bit of an echo there with Laura?
Yes, I can't hear you very well
just try mute and then unmute again, Laura, and we'll see if we can get that to work.
Is that better?
Oh, it's better. Yeah. Turn it off and turn it back on again, please.
fixes everything, doesn't it? Yeah, so our WARMs, they work really closely with a wide range of departments across the college, from our student support team to all the tutors and all the academic departments and our SEN team. And we've recently just set up a Together All platform, and which is a confidential online service that our students can access. And you know, we try to get students to utilise that system through our WARMs to try and engage them and support them as early as possible from when a certain disclosure has been brought to our attention.
Just need to unmute Kat.
Sorry. Yeah, I think having that set up in advance is so helpful, so that everybody knows what they have to do in that situation, and having a pathway for students to go around, because I think having a whole college or a whole school's approach to that, to mental health, is one of the things that's in the literature shown to be most helpful.
We have literally just looked at getting some mental health first aiders trained as well. I'm part of like a student support network at the college, and it's on our to-do list to try and get a small group of people within the college to put themselves forward for that as well.
Absolutely. And I know we did an evaluation on it. It was up at Washington Mind, actually, and with Washington schools, and that was something that was really important, was like, you know, having a liaison within the college or school, but also supporting staff with training and making sure that everyone, you know, maybe you'd have someone that had a specialism within your team in mental health if you've got an interest in it, so that you can disseminate that to the rest of the team, and yeah, make sure everyone's aware. Great.
And
it sounds like
in the chat as well, Kat, and it's the same at Stockton Riverside. The welfare workers pick up the issues and facilitate early interventions as well.
Great, fantastic. Okay, thank you. So I'll just continue. Let's see if I can get it back on there. There you go. So some of the things you might want to think about in terms of escalating risk for young people. This was a quite an interesting, unique study, actually. What we mean by a longitudinal study is one that's done over a long period of time. And the good thing about them is that we can track what happens to young people. So I think this study followed up a cohort of young people over a long period, of 456 who reported suicidal thoughts and 569 who reported self-harm, essentially, but non-suicidal self-harm. And what they found was that actually most adolescents who thought about suicide or self-harm didn't go on to make an attempt on their life. So that's good, thankfully. So, you know, that means that, you know, risk isn't, you know, the risk doesn't escalate for everybody. And even some of the most common risk factors for most people, it didn't involve a sort of transition to a suicide attempt. So that was great. But for some of the things that did, or that things you might want to think about as kind of warning signs, or things that you kind of maybe might want to think about in terms of things that might increase risk, are things like substance abuse. So things like cannabis or other substances. If the person is self-harming, then that can lead to escalating risk, although for the majority it doesn't. Sleep, again, we saw from Kooth that was one of the main problems that young people are experiencing, and maybe that's an expression of anxiety, but we know for adolescents, the way their brains work at this age, they need their sleep to help with the processes that are going on in their brain. Interestingly, the personality traits that were associated with escalating risk were higher intellect and openness to experience, but less extroversion. So maybe the quieter, more intelligent kids that are kind of more open to experiences. And you may have seen this yourself in your colleges, but also like you see clusters of this behaviour sometimes because they're being exposed to it in others. So they've got role models like friends or other people that are doing the same thing, and that actually increases your risk of doing it too. So they're just some things that you might want to think about that can be associated with increasing risk in young people. So I just wanted to, I know that you guys have probably got no time at all to read all of this stuff, so that's why I thought I'd do a little bit of the work for you. There has been a lot of interest over the last few years in terms of service development around young people's mental health, and the government have brought out a number of different papers which have committed to transforming young people's mental health provision, looking at changing the way CAMHS works, and investing in CAMHS because it's seen as that it is an issue. I know that they've started to plan to put mental health into whatever the iteration of PSHE is now. I don't know what it's called now. Citizenship, PHE, or but that thing. So basically, they're going to be educating young people about mental health and well-being in schools, which is a good thing. There's also a recent green paper, so that it came out in 2017, but the pilot is happening now. We're actually involved in the evaluation of some of the schools locally. And what they're doing is they're having mental health support teams for schools. Now, I don't know whether that includes, it says schools and colleges, so maybe it includes FE as well. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but the idea is that you're going to have a designated senior lead for mental health within your schools and colleges. I know Stockton and Hartlepool are involved in the pilot scheme, and that then there'll be workers who are trained in mental health that will be involved in support, like in-reach into schools, that will be involved in training the staff and supporting the students on an in-reach basis, basically. And the aim is to pilot a 4-week waiting time in order to help people access specialist services, because obviously if anyone has personal experiences or practical experience of referring people, that's not necessarily the case at the moment. So we may see some big changes in children and young people's services around mental health in the coming years, because it's definitely on the government agenda at the moment. So just thinking about what helps, and I've just tried to keep this fairly brief but practical. Some of the things that we know help children and young people is the person working with them having a really good understanding of the problem. So really, like what they were saying in that video, is about listening to the person, really understanding it from their perspective. We also know problem solving. It sounds simple, but the research suggests, for example, cyberbullying is a real issue for young people. I think I read an article that said up to 65% of young people had experienced a cyber aggression, and 38% had experienced like prolific cyberbullying, where they were, targeted repeatedly over a period of time, and that has been associated with death by suicide, especially in this area. And what the literature suggests is, if you just try and endure that on your own, or you just try and get through it by managing your emotions, that's going to be less effective than if you use what's called social problem solving. So actually going to somebody, telling the teacher, telling the careers advisor, telling whoever that something is going on, and enlisting their help in resolving the issue. I mean, it sounds obvious, doesn't it? But sometimes when you're not in a good place emotionally or mentally, you don't deal with the problem, you just deal with how you're feeling about it. So actually problem solving is a powerful tool that you don't need to be clinically trained to use, but actually can really help a young person. Some of the stuff around emotion regulation, I've put some sites, apps at the end that are around mindfulness, around well-being, around managing anxiety, that can be helpful to kind of help students to try and manage the sort of explosive emotions or the overwhelming emotions that they experience. And it might be about, not that you would necessarily do this, but it might be that it's helpful to manage the thoughts that pop into their mind. So it could be using an app or referring into a service where people can do that. Daily routines can be really helpful for students as well. You probably see that already in the work that you do. So helping them develop a supportive network and develop a daily routine that fits for them. Obviously, if they're experiencing difficulties, that might need to be quite bespoke, but that can be very helpful. And looking at different ways of coping with how they're feeling. So instead of using substances, instead of using whatever it is that's not helpful in terms of their mental well-being, talking to them about what other things they could do that could be helpful, and very much like doing that in partnership with the young person. as well as obviously individual therapy work or family therapy work, which can be quite helpful at this age group. Although it's a tricky age group, I used to work in a 16, 17 CAMS, and a lot of the time the 16-year-olds didn't want the parents involved at all. And that could be tricky because sometimes the parents are part of what's keeping it going, or that it might be helpful to enlist the parents' support in supporting the young person. These are some of the risk factors and protective factors for children and young people's mental health. I won't go into all of them now, but certainly if you're thinking on a school level, it sounds like you're already doing some of these things around having a whole school approach to mental health, open door policies around raising issues, and policies around behaviour and bullying. And I guess that links to that sort of social problem solving aspect. And a positive school or college environment that enhances that belonging and connectedness, as well as like supportive family and clear boundaries within the family and support within the community. Maybe a bit idealistic at the moment, given the stress that everybody's under, but I guess we know that they're the things that do help. And I like this just because it's a bit like an app, isn't it? But this is from Daniel Siegel, who does loads of fantastic resources. So if you've got kids yourself, or you're interested in mental health and adolescent mental health, Dan Siegel's book Brainstorm is brilliant. That's all about the adolescent mind. He also does The Whole Brain Child, which is like one for younger children, and it's really fascinating. But just thinking with young people about what actually helps you feel better. Again, we said sleep is so key for adolescents. You know, their brain is doing all kinds of stuff, neural pruning and all kinds of fancy jiggery pokery. So it needs that downtime to kind of do that. And if they don't have good sleep, that affects their mood and their emotion regulation quite significantly. Physical time, so going out, doing things is really important, as well as focus time where they're actually able to concentrate on something. It doesn't have to be the schoolwork, it can be something that they enjoy, but flexing that muscle almost of being able to focus. Time in with others, where they actually take time to connect, where they relax, where they have some playfulness and fun. All these things are the things that make up mental well-being for young people. And I just wanted to kind of do some top tips just before we finish. So just looking at, we know that the adolescent brain from Dan Siegel is going through a lot of changes. And actually some of the behaviours that we sometimes attribute to teenagers are actually because of the changes that are going on in the brain. I think I read somewhere that the empathy centres get shut down a bit, which is why teenagers can be so self-absorbed at times. And that's not their fault, really. That's just the way their brain works at the time. And so some of the things that we might want to help them with is whether we try and do text message reminders for appointments, because it might be that they're not so good at remembering things at this time of life. Maybe managing their emotional responses, maybe through mindfulness or something that works for them. We talked about sleep already. Maybe thinking about your DNA policy. I don't know what it's like for the careers service, but thinking about having a flexible DNA policy or a follow-up for younger people, because actually sometimes they will miss appointments and they can be a bit unreliable. So it's just being, you know, flexible with that, really. Other tips is, I don't know if you've got this in your colleges, you probably do, but thinking about having a reference group. So if you're interested in mental health and you know how important it is when you're working with young people that they don't feel things are being done to them, how can you get them involved? Maybe some of the good practice I saw at in Washington was where they had young people with lived experience of mental health that were involved in planning the interventions, that were involved in like, you know, encouraging other students to get involved in the service. And that's really good practice. And as I said earlier, like, can you have somebody in your team that builds up, like, that if you've got a passion for this area, that builds up kind of local knowledge and local connections with young people's mental health organisations, and disseminate that and goes on specialist training around that and things. So like you said, maybe the mental health first aid or other trainings that might be of use. So these are some of the apps that I would recommend that are really good, depending on what the young person's experiencing. I think most of these are free, apart from Headspace, which you do have to pay a subscription for. But actually, these are all free. Most of them are free and accessible. for lots of different problems, anxiety, self-harm, low mood, eating disorders and sleep. So you can refer young people to those, and that's something practical you can take away from this. And I'll pass this presentation on so that it can be circulated. Also, if you are interested in learning more, there's a brilliant free online training by Zero Suicide Alliance, which is around suicide prevention and talking about suicide, that you can do. Go to their website there and you can do it. If you're interested, I know it might not be as much of a problem in your teenage population, but it might be for some. So if you want to learn more about rough sleeping issues, and it also includes some stuff on trauma and mental health, that's a brilliant training. The Anemo one, again, it's free and you can go on it. The Stay Alive app is a fantastic suicide prevention app that people can download and make their own safety plan. And you know, it's helpful for people who are also concerned about someone. It tells you where to get help and support. And I just wanted to put BEAT on there as well, because I know it's an issue that eating disorders is an issue that affects that client group a lot. So just so you know, or you might already know about them, but where to get support. This is the Hope line, so that's for young people who are experiencing suicidal thoughts. They can call that from 9 AM till midnight every day, or they can text or email if they're not feeling great. So I just wanted to see if there was any questions, and also I'll try and put the comment in the link, the link in the comments, so you can add your reflections on the session, and maybe we could do this last bit as a bit of a Q&A. So is there anything anyone wants to reflect from the session, or any questions that you've got based on your experiences of working with this group?
I'll just read out, Kat. We've got Claire's just said thank you very much. It's been really useful, but she's having to dip out, so we'll see you later, Claire. And Carol's just popped on the Q&A. She's asking, is it correct that our area has one of the highest rates of suicide for young men?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just young men, it's overall, it's got the highest in the country, unfortunately. So yeah, we are a bit of a suicide, you know, Middlesbrough tops all the charts for things like this. But yeah, it's an issue. It's definitely an issue. And actually, like, suicide is the highest cause of death in under 35s. So it's quite shocking, really. Yeah.
Carol has mentioned as well at Stockton Riverside that they're looking at a triage approach for welfare issues. So that's something that they're thinking about. Do we have anybody else? Does anybody want to mic and speak to Catherine while we've got her?
So I'll just I've put the link in the chat, so if you wanted to add anything or any questions or reflections, you can, and I'll just get that Mentimeter up so you can see it. Not everybody likes speaking on these things, I know.
It's always a hard, isn't it? Oh, we've got a couple more chats coming through. Carol said thank you. Yeah, looks like Zara's typing. Really informative presentation. I think it would be great if we can send it around so that everybody has access to those links, because there was information and services on there that I certainly wasn't aware of. So that's really useful for us as a team, Kate, I think, isn't it? Obviously, we work with 16 to 18-year-olds a lot. These guys, you know, they're students, so it's always good that we have access to that. But yeah, everyone's saying thank you. Kat, everyone's really appreciative of that.
Yeah, just to remind, sorry, Jade, that we have recorded the session. So we will be sending it around to everybody as we normally do. So if you want to send it on to colleagues, or if there's people that couldn't make it that you think that this is going to be useful for, we will send the recording round as well, so you'll have the opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. If we don't have any questions, we can move on to our next section. Again, thank you so much for that, Kat. It was really useful.
Is it all right if I leave, ladies?
Absolutely, yeah. It's 10 to 5.
Thank you very much, anyway.
Thank you so much for joining. Thank you. I know I mentioned earlier, I do appreciate you all attending, because I know how ridiculously busy you are. So if anybody does need to dip out, feel free to do that. We won't hold it against you. If you do want to stay for 10 minutes and have a little chat, that'd be great. I'd like to just check in with people to see how you're all doing, firstly, because I know it's November, and this is why we are so grateful that you've managed to join us today. And just see how people are doing, really. Obviously, it's that time of year. How are applications going? How are we doing? Are we finding students are participating, meeting internal deadlines? That's sort of what I wanted to ask. Thank you, Zara. See you later. Laura, yeah, you got your hand up. Go for it.
Hiya, Jade. I was just wondering if there was a possibility to have a session to cover our travel and tourism learners. I think they've been slightly more hesitant with the UCAS deadline or the whole HE process this year. And I don't know, we're going to try and do some intervention work with the travel class ourselves, but I wonder whether an online class we could put together maybe with that group.
Absolutely. Would you be looking at, it's great that you've asked, because we do actually have Cheryl on the call. Cheryl, sorry, I'm going to throw you under the bus, you don't have to turn your camera on. So we have Cheryl from the business school, so if it was subject specific information that we're looking at, Laura, maybe we can go double prong. Carol, have you just said the same for you as well? Let me just open my chat up. I've got lots of things open at the same time. We can look to maybe have a chat about doing some bespoke progression things for them, but if they also wanted a little bit more information about the subject area, I'm sure Cheryl would be really happy to help link in some of our academics. Is there anything in particular that they would like or want?
Sorry, Jade, just went really quiet.
Oh, sorry, did you hear what I said?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
So Cheryl is on here, so we can definitely look to set something up. Would it be general progression, so the application process, that type of thing? Would they benefit from a little bit of involvement with the academics from that area? Is there anything in particular?
Yeah, possibly. I think it's just the whole UCAS system's quite overwhelming for them. Yeah. We've appointed some digital coaches to help them with to support their online learning, but I think UCAS is just an extra anxiety for them, I think, and I don't know whether, I know Carol's put in the group that she would benefit from it as well for travel and tourism. I don't know whether it's just that particular cohort, but yeah, just some extra information really on that subject area. Potentially COVID's had an impact on their future aspirations and they're a little bit hesitant, they're not really sure, you know, what's going to happen with the travel industry. So maybe there's a little bit of reassurance.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we could definitely look, and we can do the same for you, Carol, is we can look to provide some of that support for the UCAS process, and we're really happy we can do a session with the team, but something that we've offered a few times, we haven't had a massive uptake on it, but if anybody did want one-to-ones, we're happy to set those up as well. I'd be quite happy to clear a day out and we could do one-to-ones with students if they'd be more comfortable. Like we say, we have those people that don't mind being in a classroom and speaking in front of people, other people don't, so we could offer a classroom-based session. We could do some one-to-ones if that would benefit some of them, but I think it would be really important. Cheryl, you are here, aren't you?
Yeah.
To tie in Bev, maybe. So Bev's a principal lecturer, but she works specifically in travel and tourism. So I think it might be really good to tie Bev in, get her in touch with these students, because I think she'll be able to really reassure them and give them a nice overview of what she sees for the travel and tourism for the future, because it is, I can only imagine what it's like being, you know, hoping to progress into that area and travel and tourism being what it is at the moment. But I think it's important to remember that for these students, they're looking at least 3 years by the time that they've completed their degree. So we might be in a completely different position then. But I think it might be really useful to link Bev in, and we'll maybe get Bev to provide a bit of support there as well.
Absolutely, so I'll be more than happy to do that. So Jade, if you want to link me up with Laura and
Carol,
I can, and Carol, and then I can get in touch with Bev and we can get something arranged. Absolutely no problem at all. Bev, I'm more than happy to do it.
Brilliant, thank you.
All right, it's so hard. Obviously, it's the industry, isn't it, that isn't really, nothing's really happening at the moment. But I think, yeah, from an initial point, it's reminding them that they have at least 3 years, and you know, we've changed massively in 1 year, but we can change. It might change again. So Bev will be fantastic in providing a bit of support there as well. So yeah, we'll chat with you both about that and what we can set up. Does anybody else have anything to ask? Does anyone have any feedback on application process? Carol?
Yeah, some information had come through about that her Teesside had a number of places increased, 600 places for adult nurses.
So I've actually started looking into this for you, Carol, because I know you emailed me about it.
Yeah.
So no is the answer. There's not 600 places for nursing. What probably on average. So as we all know, schools specifically School of Health, are always a little bit nervous to commit to any numbers for any courses because it can drastically change year on year due to placements, and that's all it is that we can't commit to any set numbers any year because it's completely reliant on how many placements we get. But I actually wrote it down for you, Carol, and I was just needing to reply because we chatted about this bit the other day, didn't we? See if I can remember off the top of my head. It works out across all 4 of our disciplines that we do have around about 300 places, but obviously that depends on which area you're looking at. So what I'll do is I'll drop you an email with those, because we did have those sort of average numbers. They're by no means anything that we could commit to because, like I say, year on year we change. But I'll drop you an email, Carol, and just show you the breakdown of what spaces we have for each course.
Thanks, Jade.
Yeah, but it's always a funny one because, like we say, we might get 40 places one year and not that many the next. Kate, do you want to jump in?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, Jade, as well, I don't know whether we were going to mention about that information that we've got from Will, from health interviews and health applications, and there was some really good information in there, and yeah. Jade was going to pull an email together, and that might help reassure your students as to the actual process that the students go through, because I think sometimes there's real confusion over how places are allocated and applications and when students find out. So we've received a really helpful email from our manager that we're going to kind of try and pull it together into some kind of meaningful way and get that out to you guys, and that might hopefully help you. Some of the questions that you get from your health and social care students in terms of the application and interview process and the selection process as well.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll send that out. It's on my notes to add to our follow-up note. Anybody have any other things that they wanted to add? Are we finding that the students are hitting internal deadlines okay? Dare I ask? How are we doing?
No, they're not hitting the deadlines.
No, right.
No, we're not. Ours aren't hitting deadlines either. Sorry, I've been in and out. I've been interviewing students, but yeah, I was very hit and miss with deadlines.
What do we think about the January the 15th? Is it realistic this year? Or...
Yeah, I think it is. It's just obviously motivating students to get the applications in.
Yeah, and obviously more work on your guys' parts as well, I imagine, to make sure. Is there anything we can do to help with the urgency of it?
Are you finding, like, if obviously the students who were in year 12 when we went into lockdown, they're the ones who've kind of really missed out on the information that they would normally get from universities and the HE fairs and UCAS events that they would go to. Are you finding that that's impacted them at all, or are they just seeming to be cracking on as they normally would any other year?
No,
we've done lots of... Go on, Carol.
Sorry, I think it's slowing them down. Definitely. I think with everything being online as well, I think they've missed that extra bit of support, even though we've put things in place. But it's definitely slowed applications down, getting them to finish them, really.
Yeah.
Ours are thinking a lot more of what they want to do and whether they're applying to uni or not. They've all started the applications. It's just getting them to finish them and tutors checking them and sending them back. I think some tutors have checked personal statements about 3 or 4 times and they're still not right. I think that's the problem.
Right. And do you think that is maybe because they didn't have as much involvement, like Kate said, in year 12, they weren't getting the personal statement advice? I suppose when you go to a HE fair, it's not necessarily that they haven't had that information provided from you, but they'd be going around stands talking to different universities, and we relay exactly the same thing. We talk about the importance of your personal statement. And do you think maybe because they haven't had that it's maybe... It's
like that reinforcement, isn't it, that you guys say it, but then they go and talk to unis and we say it. So it's kind of like, actually, I do need to work to kind of put a bit of effort into my application.
I think so. It's hearing it from someone else as well, isn't it? Not just us. I think that's what they've missed. Even though we've put things on, they don't really attend because it's let's sit at another computer and they do that most days all day.
We found that, haven't we, in terms of
engagement. Everyone's just sick of online, aren't they?
Yeah. Laura, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just another quick one, Jade.
Yeah.
A lot of our engineering students always want an apprenticeship at the end of their course, and I was wondering whether you could perhaps put together a talk on degree apprenticeships with those learners.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. So we have a degree apprenticeship team that we could deliver something specifically on degree apprenticeships. The only thing that I would say about degree apprenticeships isn't about, by no means put anybody off them, is just that there are never as many as like apprenticeships. You know, there has to be the companies there willing to offer them. So what we always do is we try and make it quite clear that they're not, you know, it's not quite the same as applying to a university, and you know you can apply to a university and that place is guaranteed as long as you hit your results. There is that sort of, the jobs have to be there first for the employers to want to employ you. But we can definitely, we have a degree apprenticeship team that we could look, Laura, to put a nice little session in for those students to give them a bit more information about degree HGAs and degree apprenticeships. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you.
One last question as well, because we are looking at, I'm aware it's 5 o'clock. We did have some campus tours planned before we went into whichever lockdown, tiered lockdown, not a national lockdown, that we had to pull. Are we finding that students are missing the opportunity to get onto campus? This comes from, I've been in meetings recently talking about doing sort of FaceTime campus tours and how we can make campus tours virtual. We have loads of videos of campus, but we're wanting to give students the option to maybe have that either one-to-one, in that they literally have a FaceTime, you know, with someone who's walking around campus, or they book on as a group and we have a couple of ambassadors streaming a live stream around campus and they can ask questions and do things as that's happening. Do we think that's something that students would be interested in? Are you
Carol's popped a comment in there, Jade, saying yes.
Yeah,
and Laura.
Really,
yeah.
We're not sure whether, you know, it's always that difficulty of either that interested in the buildings and things, but we are trying to give students trying to replicate the opportunities that they would have at open days and things as much as possible. So we've been throwing that idea around, so that's good that you think that as well, sort of backs up our pushing that project forward. It's 1 minute past 5. Does anybody have, I mean, I'm not, you know, needing to rush off. Does anybody else have anything they want to chat about or ask whilst you've got us? Feel free to unmic. There's only 6 of us left, so we could go crazy if we want. Carol's typing, let's see. What I would say, I've now said it a few times, but we just really appreciate you guys attending. Thanks, Carol. Thank you for coming. I know it's a dead stressful time, and we do appreciate you taking the hour out because you don't have to. So anything that you can think of that we can provide, that even if you don't think it's either myself or Kate that would be involved in it, drop us a line and we'll certainly, where we can, get you in touch with the right departments. Like I say, we can arrange degree apprenticeship teams to come in, we can look to get some academics and us to deliver some sessions if any particular cohorts are struggling. So do just drop us a line, even if it's something small, but you just wanted to find something out, please do just get in touch with us, because we're always at the end of an email or a Teams call now. Not so much the phone anymore, but we're at the end of a Teams call. So thank you all for coming. That's another one done. So we've got our next Knowledge Network in December. So again, if you can find an hour, that would be brilliant.
It'll be shame we're going to miss our little get together, aren't we? I can't believe that was a year ago when we had our
little Christmas buffet. We'll post you all some pigs in blankets out. There we go. We'll enjoy a pig in blanket together. But yeah, thank you so much everybody for attending. We do appreciate it, and we'll be in touch with the minutes and the links and everything that we've discussed to follow up, so you can share it out to anybody that might be interested. But yeah, thank you. I'll see you all later. Hope you all manage.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.